Welcome back to the Breakfast Show with Philo here on IETV, and I'm very happy because when he's my employer and when he say that he's going to come on the show, I say, oh God, I can't believe it. Anyway, this morning we had Mr. Afra Raymond. He is not only the managing director of the valuation firm Raymond and Pierre, but he is also a former president of the JCC. You could tell them what that means just now. But that is for the construction industry. It's like a watchdog body, an oversight body kind of thing. And he is also, I would say, I want to call you a national guardian. You understand? Because Mr. Afra here is doing a lot of research into what the politicians is not telling me and actually putting it out there for we to see what is missing. You understand what I said? And that, you can't pay for that if you understand what I say. So, Mr. Afra, welcome to the show.
Thank
Shake
you.
my hand there.
Thank
Oh, God.
you. So, Philo, you described me as a national guardian.
Yeah.
And that sounds like a big newspaper. But everything is not black and white, and we have to make sure it's properly well read.
Yes.
So it's red, black, and white.
Red, black, and white.
Thank you.
All right.
So thanks
very
for welcoming
good.
me on the show.
All right.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Afra, a day I was cleaning and I was complaining, you know, about, you know, the money enough and the hospital and this. And you tell me, you say, you know, we would have been in a better place if it wasn't for this whole Clico fiasco.
Absolutely.
And I say, but Mr. Afra, you sure it's not because of the price of oil and gas going down and how the last administration borrowed we to the gullet? You understand? You tell me, Clico was the thing that caused the biggest dent in my bank account. Could you explain that to me, Mr.
Well, yeah. The main thing is that what I said to you is true, because in 2009, which wasn't the previous administration, it was the one before the previous administration.
Right, where you call it by name, the Manning
which is
administration.
the Patrick Manning administration,
Right.
the late Patrick Manning. That administration agreed to make an unlimited amount of money. Let us be very clear what it is saying, an unlimited amount of money with next to no interest available to the wealthiest man in the Caribbean to pay back whatever debts he wanted. And here the punchline, he could pay it back whenever he wanted. So it's like an old-time calypso by Growling Tiger, money is king. You could pay the bills whenever you like. And that is the deal that the PNM cabinet cut in January of 2009 for the benefit of the chiefs of CL Financial. And that is what we have been saddled with. We have spent an unknown amount of money, and I'm saying unknown, because at this point in time, it could be 20, it could be 19, it could be 26. Mr. Colmember, the current Minister of Finance under the current Dr. Keith Rowley-led administration, spoke with the Parliament on the 10th of May of 2017. He gave a mid-year budget review, a midterm budget review, they call it. And in the course of giving that midterm budget review, Mr. Imbert informed the Parliament, and it's formal, it's a written statement on the Ministry of Finance website, that the amount of money spent on the CL financial bailout had been $27.7 billion. That is billion with a big B.
B.
Okay? People, Mr. Manning, and then we talk about Christian with a big C. Well, we're getting billion with a big B in these rounds. And the question really is, what else could have been done with that money? Who has benefited from this bailout? Because in a situation where we don't have enough soap, we don't have enough toilet paper in hospitals. We had enough money
to bail out
the wealthiest man in the Caribbean on terms that he wanted. And that is a situation that, as far as I'm concerned, financial crime of the century. And that's what I have labeled it.
So,
I know Mr. Manning is the late Prime Minister and so on and so on, but what has to be said, and the facts are the facts.
No, but it was also alleged at that time that the then Minister of Finance and the then Governor of the Central Bank pull out the money before the balloon bust.
Well, in fact, the Minister of Finance is not even an allegation. The Minister of Finance at the time was Karen Nunes-Teixeira. It later emerged that Mrs. Nunes-Teixeira was a shareholder, holding 10,310 shares in CL Financial through her late husband, Russell Teixeira. But the interesting point about Mrs. Nunes-Teixeira's withdrawals is that, in fact, those were admitted. This is not an allegation that is floating in thin air. There was an article published in the Express in which she was interviewed by Kamini Maharaj, my colleague, on Wednesday, the 4th of February, 2009. And the headline was, everybody knew Clico was in trouble. So in fact, in that interview, Mrs. Nunes-Teixeira sought to explain, yes, I'd withdrawn my money. Everybody knew there was a problem, and I took steps to protect my family and so on. And that is actually a very serious part of the background to this matter. So we have a situation, I can't remember Mr. Ewart Williams' explanation, the former governor of the central bank, but his situation is also equally troubling because on the one hand, you have the top regulator in the country, which is the governor of the central bank, telling the country on Friday the 30th of January 2009 that this group is in trouble. These are the reasons the group is in trouble. These are the reasons we have to rescue them. It's a very serious situation. We've known about this for 5 years. We have grappled with it, and we've come to this point where we have to bail out. And this is all the text of his.
Wait, they had known about it for 5 years?
Yes, hold on. Let me give it. So Governor Williams explains in his formal statement, then Governor Williams, that we knew about this problem. But what later emerges is that he had money there. And I am unable to reconcile those two things. I'm unable to reconcile a professional person who's in charge of regulating the country's financial system, who knows that that group has a crisis brewing and a series of serious concerns brewing, yet you had money there. So therefore, for me, it's what I call if it was a divorce, I'd call it an irreconcilable difference. It's very serious.
But Mr. Raymond, did not we see that certain of our sitting MPs right now was shareholders, was on the board, all kind of things. So to me, it was like a cook-up. You understand?
Yes.
And it wasn't only PNM, it was UNC and PNM.
It was on all sides because the company was huge and the company's reach within Trinidad and Tobago's elite, the political elite and the economic and financial elite was tremendous. So in fact, you're correct. There were shareholders, there were senior people in the previous administration. We had Dr. Tiwari, who of course is Minister of Planning and Sustainable Development. Dr. Tiwari was, I believe he's a shareholder, but Tiwari was certainly a member of the parent company board, CL Financial. In the current situation, the current administration, we have our Attorney General is Mr. Faris Al-Rawi, and Faris was on the board of Clico Investment Bank for 3 years before they collapsed. I mean, these are not, I'm not making up, these are facts that are in the company registry. These are like the facts of what has happened, okay? And the same Governor Ewart Williams, the former governor we just spoke about, he is the advisor to the current Minister of Finance.
Well, that is what I was saying. I know they bring him back in some capacity.
He's advising Mr. Ewart at this point in time. So we have a series of, when we talk about interlocking directorships, and so we have a series of interlocking situations like that need to be of concern. So I think we have a situation now, Philo, where we have appointed liquidators, which is what there was a court battle recently. Appointed liquidators. I think the attempt by Mr. Dupree to challenge that appears to have had a big delay or foundering. On the one hand, because the top level attorneys he had hired Mr. Ramesh Lawrence Maraj, senior counsel, and Mr. John Jeremy, senior counsel, both of whom are former attorneys general. And I don't think their fees were paid, so they pulled out of the case. And then secondly, he went forward with some junior lawyers, not senior counsel, and I think he was defeated in the appeal court recently, like in the last week or so. So there are going to be attempts to block the liquidation of CL Financial, because the liquidation of CL Financial will be a process taking place under the supervision of the court to sell off the assets of the company.
I know people Iron Angostura,
to recover the money.
Iron Trincity Mall, Iron Home Construction, real people iron that already.
To recover those monies, yeah.
So, Mr. Afra, why did we bail out CL Financial? Was it because they employed too many people that this movie, they had it on TV, Too Big to Fail? Yeah. Was that the case where this company was so big that if they let it fail, it could really throw off the economy because people would be out of work?
Well, that is the argument that was put forward at the beginning. At the beginning we were told that it's too big to fail. And in fact, if it goes down, it would affect everything in the country, because you're talking about a lot of pensioners, a lot of old people, a lot of people who retired and so on and so on, and people had their money inside of there and so on. But I do wonder, and I'll tell you why. If you walk through it and you look at the numbers are really important. The numbers tell a story, the numbers that we can tell. So at the time the whole thing was announced in January of 2009, we were told the number was 5 billion. Right. Later in 2009, we were told that it was actually like 10 billion. By the time it was May of 2010, and Mrs. Kamala Prasad Bissessa won the election, it was 7.3 had been spent, 7.3. When Mr. Dukaran gave his first budget on the 8th of September 2010, and Mrs. Kamala Persad-Bissessar gave an excellent speech to Parliament on the 1st of October 2010. Mrs. Persad-Bissessar made a very compelling case. It's one of her better speeches. Okay, we have to reach across whatever political isms that may exist and wherever they exist to recognize certain moments of clarity. And she made the point in that speech that you asked, she was speaking to the opposition, which at the time was led by Dr. Rowley.
Right.
She said, look, you asked to borrow 5 billion and we supported you. In fact, you spent 7.3. To straighten this mess out, we need to spend another 7. To pay everybody off is 14.3.
Right.
This is in October of 2010. And we fast forward now to where we are right now. I just gave
7 years later.
I gave a figure of Mr. Imbert's estimate on the 10th of May 2017, the midterm budget review. Mr. Imbert was telling us on that occasion that we've spent 27.7. Now, how did we go from an estimate in 2010 of 14.3 to a figure in 2017 of 27.7? And
but where all that money go?
exactly. And there are people like Mr. Peter Permel's group, the Clico Policy.
That did not get no money?
There's the Mr. Ramesh Lawrence Maharaj group. There are other groups of thousands of people. So where did this money go? And that is the reason that I brought the court case I brought, because I brought a court case successfully against the Ministry of Finance to get those details.
So wait, you have to bring a court. Why you couldn't get it under Freedom of Information
Well, I
Act?
tried to get it under Freedom of Information Act and it was refused. So I had to take them to court. I won them in court. And now we're in the appeal court because the successive administrations, before it was the People's Partnership, at the current moment it is Dr. Rowley's PNM administration, the successive administrations don't want to give the details of how that money was spent.
So then everybody in the cook-up, the 41 on the waterfront, as I call them, all of them involved.
Yeah, Callaloo is the national dish, yeah.
Wait, so just so, we're talking about close to $14 billion or more?
Yeah, that went who knows where and paid for what reason, I don't know.
No wonder they can't pass no fat cat legislation. They have a lot of fat cats. I am sure ways. Now, why would Mr. Dupree, however, hire Mr. Ramesh Lawrence Maharaj? Let me tell you why. I remember under the Pandey administration, if I is correct, Mr. Ramesh Lawrence Maharaj was the AG, not so?
Yes, that's right.
Right. And then it looked like when the UNC was losing office, plenty of people had fallen out. And then Mr. Ramesh went and do his Rainbow Coalition and whatnot. But one of the things he said upon, what did this call it? Demitting office, was that Clico was not liquid. He said this big and bold, and I'm saying, how you biting the hand that feed your soul? Because I know Clico did put money in that party to bring them to office, you understand? And how is you saying this about one of your financier? You understand? This is the same financier. I wonder if it was a bacchanal because it is alleged, you know, Mr. Pandey get a gift of an apartment in Kensington from Mr. Dupree. And if that was the cause.
Yeah, I don't know. I think the fact that Mr. Pandey selected Mr. Ramesh Lawrence Maharaj as his attorney.
General?
As his attorney. No, I'm sorry, Mr. Dupree.
Right,
I'm sorry, I made a mistake. The fact that Mr. Dupree selected Mr. Ramesh Lawrence Maharaj as his attorney is really important because whatever one may think of Ramesh, and Ramesh has had a political career that has spanned a number of different incarnations.
And he is still black.
Whatever one may think of Ramesh, and certainly that's my opinion, that he's a formidable advocate. He's one of the most formidable people at the bar in the Caribbean.
Right.
And if it is you really want to take on the system, the establishment, there are very few people that could do it with the kind of force and effect that Ramesh could. Okay? So in fact it was a good pick. But from what emerged later, it doesn't appear that the fees were paid and that they weren't able to agree a number of things and so on. And of course the fees not being paid was a little kind of tragic thing because there was Mr. Dupree saying that he has the money and he could buy back the group and he could buy back the company.
Right.
And how is it you could buy back the group if you can't pay the lawyer's fees? So the whole thing started to resemble a kind of a joke. And I think Mr. Maharaj indicated he wasn't going to pay anymore.
Right.
And John Jeremy said, if Mr. Maharaj not paying, I'm not paying either. So
the whole thing and that's a UNC former AG and a PNM former AG
the whole
and
thing
the
whole thing sort of fell apart. And unfortunately, it fell apart on that financial grounds of not being paid. So it kind of brings into question now how serious Mr. Dupree was about having all this money.
Right.
So it kind of brings into question now his financial, the truth.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
Right.
It brings all of that into question. But in terms of selection of attorneys, Lawrence Maraj is a top class attorney. When it comes to fighting a huge fight against a huge enemy.
No, but what I find interesting too is that it almost seems like Mr. Maraj, they tried to warn me about Kiko since back then by telling me they're not liquid.
It was many years ago.
And we still went gung-ho with it.
Yeah, but we like a lot of adventures in Trinidad and Tobago, you know. You know we do.
And talking about adventures, no, I know that one of the things that you has been really working hard on, because I see all the papers on your desk, was that Invaders Bay land giveaway.
Yes.
Arriving this morning.
I noticed.
And I want to tie that in with the no man's land deal that's supposed to be for Sandals.
Yes.
Because we have a propensity, it seems, to have some very mysterious, murky land transfers, and you can't get no information and you can't get the truth.
Yeah. Well, you see, what we're dealing with here is the whole question of how the business of the state is conducted and how business is conducted, large-scale business is conducted really. So we have a conflict. Let's just talk it in principles. We have a conflict between two worlds. In the world of business, if you had a piece of land and I wanted to buy your piece of land to put a shopping center, so it's nothing to do with government.
Right.
Your piece of land and you and I talking about it. Your family may know I'm talking with you about it, and my business partners may know I'm talking with you about it, but it's not generally known in the public, and it doesn't have to be.
Right.
Because basically, we are two private people
right.
discussing a piece of business we may or may not do in a few months' time. So there's that tradition, for understandable reasons,
right.
of competition and so, that you don't give out your business
right.
if you're in a commercial negotiation. Over here, there is the whole question of regulatory questions and approvals. Because I wouldn't buy a piece of land to put a shopping center if I'm not going to get approvals.
Right.
I wouldn't buy a piece of
land.
land.
If it's deemed agricultural land, right.
To put a shopping center
right.
if the EMA wouldn't approve it.
Right, right.
Or if WASA wouldn't give me a supply of water.
Right.
Therefore, irregardless of any discussion you and I might be having about this piece of land, I need to satisfy myself that there are regulatory approvals in place
right.
that make sense for me to buy this land from you at that price.
Right.
And what it is we are already wrestling with here is that in Invaders Bay and at No Man's Land is that in fact large-scale developments are being considered on public property, because the land at No Man's Land has now become public property because it was bought over from the CL group, okay? Right. On public property. And in fact, the regulatory approval process is masked. So we don't know whether any approvals were granted at Invaders Bay. My information is that they weren't. So what were you given? What were you selling? Who were you selling land to do what? Okay. My information is that no applications were made to the EMA. We did our research.
Right.
So you see what I'm saying? The two worlds which have to relate are actually in conflict.
Right.
Talking about No Man's Land, has it been environmentally assessed?
Well,
and so on and so on. You see?
Because listen, I don't know if you see, Fishermen and Friends of the Sea, the NGO, is challenging the certificate of environmental clearance that the EMA issue for that 4 kilometers of highway that is costing 400 million.
Okay, I wasn't aware of that.
Yes, they're challenging it still. It's in the papers today. And I just say to myself, can himself or should himself give approval to himself?
Yes.
The EMA is state. The party in power appoints the board of the EMA. Can the board tell them no? The same people that appoint you?
Well, you see the point of this is the reason why there's a procedure in law which we have called a judicial review. So you can have a body that has statutory powers like the EMA.
Right.
So they have powers in law to approve certain things and test certain things and refuse certain things. And what you are speaking to is the fact that the top people of the EMA are politically appointed.
Yes, and every state enterprise.
Sure. And in fact, if they give certain approvals or they refuse certain approvals, that could be an act of political spite or favoritism. But the reason for the judicial review procedure which is what people like Friends and Fishermen FDC employ, or when I was at JCC, the JCC employed, or that in fact I employed in ECL financial cases, a judicial review. So a public body has a statutory duty to perform a particular function in a particular way. And the judicial review is when you can actually bring that decision into court and say, well, okay, show me that you follow the law. Which is what a judicial review is. So the court, which is an independent arbiter, is being asked, with all the evidence, was the correct procedure followed in this case? Was the correct law followed in that case? And that is the importance of judicial review for citizens, organizations, or NGOs to be able to challenge the actions of some of these bodies that from time to time would go off into the political high grass.
Right.
So that is what the judicial review is about.
But Mr. Afra, so you had to spend all this money, by your money, to go in court?
Yeah.
But then Mr. Afra, you could pay me better.
Well, I will try, yeah?
Right, we're moving on. So, I noticed when the topic had come out about no man's land, and people were saying, oh, the government pick up the piece of land for cheap, you came out and said, no, the valuation was good.
It was fine, yeah.
Right? But that leads to our next question. Does we need a next hotel run by the government in this country? Let me tell you why. We have this Hilton, right? We have this Hyatt, right? And we have this Magdalena Grand. No. Hilton, the other day they refurbished it, but I'm still not sure it's topper, right? Everybody seems to like the Hyatt, so I feel they're making money, right? But what I doesn't understand, and we see it, does you know that despite the fact that we own the Hilton and the Hyatt here, plenty government offices still keep their conference in the hotel across the road from the Hyatt, which is privately owned. I just had to watch that and say, wait boy, what is going on there? No, the Magdalena Grand, to me, since before we had taken it over, and since, doesn't seem like a hotel that has really attract a lot of customers to get in long, you understand? You had to be playing golf to really want to stay there, you understand? And still, that other hotel, that's, what is it called? I forget the name of it. It have an ex-hotel with a big golf course. Mount Irvin. Mount Irvin to me is a much more accessible, cozier golf course to play.
Yes.
You understand? Than Magdalena Grand. So we buy over that because I feel Hilton did not want it, right? We can't see a profit yet. We ain't see no balance sheet to tell me nothing. No. And here we is going to build our next hotel because the Prime Minister is saying we go own that Sandals. And what I want to tell people is, I was in St. Lucia a few years back and they was building a Sandals. And the signboard was big, you know. But the truth is, Sandals might employ, let me just say, 1,500 people when it building. But when it actually open, if we're lucky to get 400 jobs, if we get 400 jobs, we're going to be lucky. So to spend all that money to come out with 400 jobs, if we're lucky, is that worth it?
Well, these are really linked up.
All right.
Interesting questions. Now, the first thing to say is that the hotels that you're speaking about, they're not government operated, just to be clear.
Right.
So the three biggest hotels in the country are state owned.
Right.
So we have Trinidad Hilton, that was built in 1962. We have the Tobago Hilton, now known as Magdalena, that was built in 2000. And then we have the Hyatt Regency on Ryson Road, that was built in 2008 January. So we have three biggest hotels in the country that are state-owned. So the state designed, built, fitted and furnished those properties. And the foreign entities they operate it.
Right.
So it's operated by the foreign entity.
Right.
What I've been doing with my colleagues, because I have colleagues at Disclosure Today that have been very supportive to my work.
Disclosure Today, that's an NGO?
Disclosure Today is an NGO that is focused on the use of the Freedom of Information Act to bring out information to the public.
Fantastic.
So they're run by a CEO called Rishi Maharaj. Rishi is my esteemed colleague, and we have been doing a lot of work over the last year. So I constructed a research program, and we've been sending Freedom of Information requests to various government agencies to find out about what is the actual operating performance of those three hotels, what are the actual agreements with the three hotels. And I could tell you that we've had a lot of opposition. In one case, we may be going to court shortly, but we had a lot of opposition because the government agencies concerned don't want to give the details. So we're really dealing with a kind of a culture of secrecy. So we've been writing to ETEC,
Right.
which is
They still around?
Yep.
All right.
ETEC runs Trinidad Hilton.
Right.
And the one that used to be known as Tobago Hilton, Magdalena
Right.
Grand.
Right.
We've been writing to UDICOT, which is Hyatt Regency.
We hear the companies are writing for that
We've been
cloistered company.
We've been writing to the Board of Inland Revenue.
Oh, good.
And the Board of Inland Revenue was because we had gotten information that some of these hotels don't pay the correct taxes.
Okay.
So we were writing to ask, is it true? Are there any complaints? Are there any investigations? Have there been any penalties? Have there been any interest? We didn't want amounts. We just wanted yes or no. They said, we can't tell you that. And the fourth organization we wrote to was the Ministry of Finance. The Ministry of Finance is what you call corporation sole.
Right.
Because they own all the shares of UDICOT and
Right.
they own all the shares of ETEC.
Right.
And we wrote the Ministry of Finance and we asked them whether in fact there have been any management reviews or financial audits of those
hotels.
Yeah. And the Ministry of Finance, to their credit, wrote back to us very promptly, like about 10 days. Very unambiguous, and that was in the permanent secretary. He wrote back and he said, no, we've never, which is a shocking answer, we've never had a financial audit and we've never had any management reviews.
Wait.
So this is just...
Wait. So since 1962, when Trinidad Hilton and Conference
Yes.
Center built, and then Magdalena Grand was what, 2008?
2000.
2000, and then Hyatt was 2008.
08, yes.
And they do no audit for none of them hotels ever.
No.
In the history of Trinidad and Tobago.
It doesn't seem so.
So we fly blind, we just...
Yeah. Seat of the pants. Yeah.
So then how can they tell if the hotel is being run profitably?
Exactly. And that is the question that we are raising. The question we are raising is that we have the country, the state, the citizens, we have three huge investments in hotels. As I said, the three largest hotels in the country at this point in time.
Right.
We do not have any clear information about how those things are being run. We are involved, myself and my colleagues at Disclosure today, we are involved in a research program using the Freedom of Information Act to get that information out into the public. And we don't believe that in the absence of that information, you could really be properly informed to have negotiations with somebody as experienced and as skilled and as successful as Mr. Butch Stewart. Because he would, because
is the owner of the
Sandals, yeah, you better understand that Butch Stewart would have done his research.
Oh,
And
yes.
he would have all of his facts.
Oh yes.
Even if we're not ready,
Correct.
they would be ready.
Yeah.
So in fact, to put Trinidad and Tobago in the best possible place, because it's not as if I am against Sandals. We don't know anything yet, because the basic details haven't been given. We have a kind of a location. We know it's no man's land, what they call a Golden Grove.
Yeah.
We have a kind of a size. We have a kind of a size that is about 750 rooms.
750
Which is
rooms?
huge.
How we fill in that?
We will. He will.
We could fill that?
He will.
Oh, he could fill
He
that?
will, yeah.
Right.
We have some kind of ideas, but really, we don't actually understand what the deal is. And if we don't know the information about the first three, it'll be quite difficult to understand the fourth one. I mean, I want to say that the work I'm describing to you is all found on my blog, which is afraraymond.net.
Well, they hear that there, afraraymond.net, you could read everything he say and more. Right.
Thank you.
Mr. Raymond, I know you just write for the paper sometimes. And
On a Wednesday.
on a Wednesday,
In the
right?
Express.
That's the business.
In the Express, Business
right,
Express,
Business
yeah.
Express, right?
Yeah.
But I see you start a thing for live thing.
Yeah,
Where's that?
the big black box. So I had my first session, and that is with the assistance and the support of the Three Canal and the artistic community,
Right.
in particular Mr. Wendell Manware. Good morning, Wendell.
Right.
And that is the big black box at 33 Murray Street. We had our first session on Wednesday, the 11th of October, and we call it Bussin' Files.
Right.
And I discussed the whole question of the importance of memory, how you build a civilization, what are the keynotes of building a civilization, the importance of records, and the careless way we have treated with our own national records. And of course, I talked about CL Financial. So it's up on my blog, afraraymond.net. And we have another session, which is called Bussin' Files Part 2. That's tomorrow. Tomorrow is Wednesday, the 15th of November.
Right.
And on that occasion, tomorrow evening at 6 o'clock, I'm going to be going into the whole question of some of this stuff about the hotels, the whole question about building a Caribbean civilization, the necessity to recognize that and to undertake that as a serious piece of work, a disciplined piece of work. And the hotels are going to be the center point of the thing, but it's built on a foundation of creating a Caribbean civilization. And
Fantastic.
that is
As
tomorrow. It's
President
free.
said, we have
It's
no
free.
behavior. We don't know how to behave. We're not a people yet.
Yes, it's free. It's at 33 Murray Street in Woodbrook, and the place is called the Big Black Box.
And what time it starts?
From 6 o'clock. Yeah.
So anybody can come?
Yes, it's free.
All right, fantastic. But something that I doesn't understand.
Mm-hmm.
So, to my recollection, is UNC under Mr. Pandey who bring the Freedom of Information Act.
That's correct.
And I thought they really bring that so that PNM can tie them up again. But now in 2017, it seems like, well, both parties want nobody to use the Freedom of Information Act. So why does we have it? Because if we have something, but every time we go to try to use it, they're blocking you.
Yeah. I mean, I've had some success with the Freedom of Information Act. I can't sit here and say that I've never succeeded. Sometimes I've written to ministries and asked for important things and gotten it without having to go to court.
Right.
Okay, the most notable thing was the CL Financial Shareholders Agreement, which was signed in June of 2009, and the Permanent Secretary in Finance at the time was Alison Lewis, who was recently in this thing at the port and so.
Right, she's the chairman of the port, and
yes.
she was on the Economic
Advisory Board.
Advisory Board, correct.
But Ms.
Can
Lewis,
one do both?
sorry?
Can you be on the Economic Advisory Board and be the chairman of the Port Authority too?
Yeah, it seems
Okay,
so.
I just wonder.
And
right.
Ms. Lewis actually made the shareholders agreement available to me without me having to go to court. So there's been episodes where I've gotten substantial information. Recently I've had a lot of success. I want to thank them on air. I've had a lot of success from the people who run the Housing Development Corporation, which is another agency with a lot of issues. And I've been very critical of them, but they have given me a massive information about financially, about the HTC, which I'll be going public with that in the next little rounds.
Right.
So that's very important. But
right.
the point you're making, Philo, is absolutely correct. That in fact, the Freedom of Information Act is something that a lot of high public officials view with discomfort. And they try to find a way not to comply and not to give out the information, and a way to block the thing and delay the thing and to tie you up in some kind of expense. And so that's a fact. So I think that it's interesting that the current Attorney General, Mr. Faris Al-Rawi, has repeatedly said that one of the things he's going to be doing is trying to review the Freedom of Information Act. And I always found that to be a very fascinating and pregnant phrase. Is Faris, our Attorney General, is Faris claiming that in fact he's going to make the Freedom of Information Act more liberal, to give us more rights?
Right.
Or is it that he's going to try and make it more restrictive, create a more restrictive set of laws around freedom of information to make it more difficult to get information? Because certainly if there were changes upcoming, I would like to have some input. And I think that one of the things that we need to put in place is some kind of penalties or rewards, because many times you find yourself delayed for extended periods of time. And when the information comes out, it's somebody who's trying to avoid being embarrassed. As a good friend of mine always says, he says, Afra, all of us grew up in this Catholic kind of Judeo-Christian thing. And you grow up and you learn about the 10 Commandments and you used to get licks in school and thing. He said, but what's going on now in Trinidad and Tobago is the 11th commandment, And the 11th commandment is, thou shalt not be found out. And the 11th commandment is actually what is manifesting in this hostility to the truth.
Yes,
Yeah.
because if we has the law fit,
Yeah.
will give you the information.
Yes.
Anyway, Mr. Afra, I'm so pleased. Don't feel because I'm working here, I can't work properly on your place. I want to keep my work.
I understand. You will keep things going. Thank you.
All right, but Mr. Afra,
thank you
thank
very
you for
much.
coming and thank you for sharing. Don't forget, Mr. Afra is making all this information that he discussed and more, including his live sessions at the Big Black Box, available on his blog, afraraymond.net. And tomorrow night, he's at the Big Black Box, 33 Murray Street in Woodbrook. It's free from what time?
6 o'clock.
From 6 o'clock. And he's here to educate us. You understand? All of we doing it on different levels.
Thank
he
you.
is bringing out the information for we. We need to at least read it, understand it, so we could understand how this country is working, so that we could try to see we way in the future. Well, not in the future, in the present, and moving forward into the future. Because if we don't know, right, how is we going to make informed decisions? You understand what I say? All right? So this has been the breakfast show with Ms Philo. I want to thank all of you. I want to thank my special guest. And I want to thank, of course, my crew master control, Ryan and Vishnu this morning. Tomorrow is Wednesday. I was hoping to have a guest. I'm hoping I'm going to call him to confirm. But trust me, if he's coming on, it's going to be hot because we're going to be dealing with education. All right? Only hold it down till tomorrow.